Yo! Good evening, my friends. This is called Real Talk for Life. We want to have conversations with you teenagers about things that are real, things that are happening to you every day in your life. And we're going to have a lot of these conversations. We're looking forward to the times when we can be together and have these so you can ask questions, you can share comments. Starting soon this week, we're going to be doing this on Zoom. So if you want to click in on Zoom and watch us and then ask questions, whatever, or just sit there and not say anything. This is my friend Steve Aronfeld, and I'm James. And Steve, he's just, trouble, so he's just kind of along for the ride here. But, he's going to be one of these, just like many of you that click in on Zoom, he's just probably going to sit here and sit like a statue and not talk. But he thinks that, but we're going to get him talking. Okay. So, just so you know, this is my business card for our outreach. It's called the Teen Outreach of Fort Wayne. Okay, and then so on the back, we have all of our social media places where you can find us on social media. And our goal is to open a teen outreach center here in the Bloomingdale neighborhood of Fort Wayne where you can come in, you can hang out. We're looking at putting a gym in there. We're looking at an activity center where we'll have video games and board games and maybe some musical instruments, whatever you want in that activity area, but also another area where you can just hang out with your friends and have some coffee. We'll have computers with internet access so you can get there, but also we can just sit down, we can have these real talk for life. And so tonight what I wanted to talk about, I was thinking about this today, is hurts and struggles that you go through. So many of you teens right now are going through what I did when I was a teenager. You're living in poverty, your parents are on drugs and they're selling the food stamps to buy more drugs. You never know where your food's going to come from for you or your younger siblings. You've got your clothes are all coming from Goodwill or Salvation Army or people that donate them. So many of you, but you're also, unfortunately, there's so many that are being hurt, they're being abused, you're getting the crap beat out of you all the time. I said, these are real talk. We're not going to give you the kind of nonsense you usually hear from adults. I want to be real with you. I understand what your life is like because I was there. I understand what it's like to be sexually molested, and some of you that watch this, you will have been through that, or you're still going through that, and you need help. And that's what we want to do. We want to help you break free from that, break those chains. And one of the things, we're working on ideas for a new logo for this Teen Outreach Center. And maybe it'll have something to do with that. Something about, showing how you've broken the chains, you've broken free from what's there. But what I want you to understand, that even once you break through these first ones that seem so impossible. I mean, if a family had not opened their hearts and their home to me when I was 15, I wouldn't have lived to 16. I would have killed myself. Even before I left Fort Wayne and moved to Zanesville, Indiana, a little old country town in the middle of nowhere. But even before that point, I was already thinking about killing myself because it was so bad. Then I met the Taylor family. And they opened their hearts, they opened their home to me. They made me a part of their family. And that saved my life. But you know what? That did not take away my problems. I was still screwed up as you could be. My head was as screwed up as possible. And everybody pretended to ignore it. It took me until I was 50. 35 years after I met the Taylors before I admitted that I had problems with my head. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to step up and say, hey, I need help. I would like to talk to a professional. I would like to talk to a therapist. Now, not all therapists are good. I have an amazing one. And if any of you are in Fort Wayne, I'd be glad to give you a reference. She works with teens. Her name is Tracy. She loves to work with teens. And I'd be glad to do that. But you know what? But it wasn't just that. I had all kinds of problems. And what you have to do, though, if you want to be an adult that functions, you have to learn to overcome those problems. Okay, and we're going to start here. Let's start with just the most recent one. We went through this year of COVID, and some of the stuff just got nonsensical, including the fact that they shut us down and locked us down when things were mild. But when things got severe, they didn't do it. But my friend Steve, that's why we're going to start with him here. We're going to give him a chance to talk about how hard it was to deal with that. I mean, he had a job delivering food for a restaurant, and all of a sudden he's locked down. He's used to going to church and seeing people. You were going, 2 or 3 different churches you were going to, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Steve would visit 2 or 3 different. That was his socialization. That's how he got to be around other people.
Yes.
Because Steve had been through a lot. His parents were gone, and so it was just him. Yeah. When all of a sudden they lock us down, and then what? So let's talk about the other Steve. Talk about, how hard it was for you, or what the struggle was like for you when you went through the COVID lockdown.
Well, I was basically paralyzed with fear. So I could not control myself. I had extreme anxiety, nervousness. I had anxiety that I thought I had COVID, and I probably really didn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had all these tests done, but I was just literally going crazy when the test. I was crying. I was upset. I was afraid. I wouldn't stop doing this. I was afraid to be around people. And what I realized is that I bought into the fear.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that COVID didn't exist, and that doesn't mean that people got sick from it, but it was being made more than what it actually was.
Right. Yeah, see, and so Steve got through that. It was hard, and that's what I want you to understand. You're always going to have hard times. And I'm a man of faith, and I'm not saying you have to be. This outreach, this real talk that we're having, not about getting you to believe like I believe. But let me tell you what my Bible says, what I believe. Jesus said you're going to have hard times. You're going to have struggles. And you're going to have fears. I'm like Steve. I have severe anxiety disorder. Yesterday, I had to go to a bank and open a checking account so that we could move forward with this teen outreach idea. It was one of the scariest things I've ever done. I was so afraid. The woman I was dealing with was the nicest woman I've ever met. I mean, she was so friendly, so outgoing, and she was so interested in this work we're doing to try to help you teens break the chains that you feel like are binding you. But it was hard for me to get through that, and I want you to know that. Don't think that if we deal with this problem, okay, let's say we get you to the point where you're finishing high school and are able to go to college. That's going to be the end of your problems. That's really only the beginning of your problems. Now, if you're stupid like me and you get married your freshman year of college after knowing someone 6 months, you really got a lot of problems, because then you're trying to do schoolwork, do your job at the college, your work study job, you're trying to work a regular job, and you have a wife at home. That's a lot of struggle. But see, struggles are part of life. They're what we're going to go through. We have to expect them. My wife and I, we lasted 30 years. We shouldn't have lasted 30 months, believe me. I was mentally ill. She had her own problems. We were too young and naive. Neither one of us knew what being married meant. And problem after problem kept coming at us. We were 2 years in. We had our first child. By the time I finished my bachelor's degree, we had 2 children. By the time I finished my master's degree, we had 3 with a 4th on the way. That was problems. But we had a lot of hard times. And throughout my life, hard times have came time and time and time again. And I've usually not handled them all. That's why I wanted to talk to you about this, so that you're prepared. Because see, I thought in those first days after I came to know Jesus, in those first days after I moved in with the Taylor family, I thought my problems were all gone. I was no longer living in an abusive situation. The stepfather that had abused me for so many years was dead. My mother's boyfriend, who was just as abusive as her husband that she just divorced right before he passed away, he was gone. I thought, hey, my problems are all gone. You're not going to have any more problems. Why would you? Well, yeah, but those were actually only the start of my problems. I had a few good months, a few good years, and I learned a lot during that time. I learned about families. I learned about love. I learned about life. Heck, I learned about deodorant. I didn't know what deodorant was until I was 16. My mother never once mentioned the subject. Forget birth control, forget, sex education, anything like that. She didn't teach us anything in there. I learned it all afterwards, but the problems kept coming and I had to deal with them. So you as teenagers, you have to learn to face your problems. You have to learn that they're going to come, And oh my goodness, Tracy says this to me all the time, and I don't like it, but she's right. Everything is just for a time, and you will get through it. You will get past it. And every time Tracy has told me that, my therapist, that's what's happened. I went through over the last 3 years, I went through severe periods of depression. I went through severe periods of anxiety. And I know many of you who are going to watch this are going to relate to that because you do. You get really sad, really down, or you get really afraid. And you probably have a reason to. If you're living with someone who is abusing you or who has abused you in the past, if you're living with someone who's angry all the time, you have a reason to be afraid. But it's when you're not in that situation and you get afraid that it seems hard to deal with. But you'll get through it. You'll come out the other side. And so you'll come back up to that mountaintop and you'll have periods where you'll feel great. But just know that they're going to come again and you can deal with them. Sometimes you need professional help to deal with them. You may need a therapist, a psychologist. I have both. That's how messed up I am. See, I'm just like you guys. I'm just like Steve. And that's why Steve and I hit it off. Steve is the first person since Scott Taylor when I was a teenager that felt like a brother to me. Why? Because we've both been through problems. We both still have problems. Again, I mentioned, and I don't know all the details, but Steve's been on his own for a long time now. His mom's been gone.
15 years.
15 years.
2005, she passed
Okay?
away.
That's hard to do. When you're an only child and you've been close to your mother, and then she's gone. And he's now had to make it 15 years on his own. That's a hard time. But see, he's getting through it. And that's what a functioning adult does. Mm-hmm. As opposed to someone who does what I tried to do 3.5 years ago and just locks themselves in the house and says, I don't want to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. If you want to have a good life as you move forward, you need to be prepared for hard times to come. Yeah. And think now about how am I going to handle them? Okay, we talked about college, and not every one of you is going to want to go to college. That's one of the things that has always driven me nuts. That especially when we lived in North Carolina 15 years, and especially down there, they had an expectation every child was going to college. The high schools pressured every kid in the school to apply to college. Every kid is not right for college. Every kid does not want college. Some of you are going to want to go straight into jobs. Some of you are going to want to go to a trade school or a trade union and learn to be an electrician or a plumber because that's what you like. You don't need a 4-year liberal arts degree to know how to be a plumber. Okay? But let's talk to those of you that want to go to college. College, for most people, sorry, it wasn't for me, but for most people, it's a very hard thing. I'm trying to say it with a straight face because I know it's for that way for other people. For me, college, even with raising a family, was the easiest thing in the world.
Well, it depends on what you want to get in.
Yeah. So
and whether college is really worth it.
Yeah, is college worth it for you? It's very expensive. It's hard to do without burying yourself in loan. But if you are, I want you to understand, you're going to have hard times. You're going to have classes that seem like they're almost impossible to pass.
Now, with me, I didn't graduate high school, but I got my GED.
He got his GED.
In I think it was 2013 or 2015 when I got it.
See, and that's overcoming a problem. So whatever it is, and many of the kids I grew up with dropped out. Hopefully they went back later and got their GED. My sister was that way. She got pregnant while still in high school, my half-sister. She got pregnant, and they all but kicked her out. But she went back later and got her GED. See, because she ran into a problem, and then she dealt with it. And that's what I want you to think about. As you move through life, there are going to be obstacles, going to be problems. So college, yes, you're going to run into obstacles. You learn a trade, there are going to be obstacles. It's hard. I cannot do anything with my hands. I'm a teacher. I'm an accountant. Give me a computer. Give me numbers. Fixing the lights, not a chance. But I understand how hard it is. I've watched other people. So if you want to be an electrician, you're going to have obstacles. You're going to have problems you have to overcome to learn how to be an electrician. And if you're prepared for that, if you're thinking ahead saying, okay, I know there are going to be rough days, but I'll get through them. it's going to be a lot easier to build that future you want. And that's what we want for you. Everything about this Teen Outreach Center is about helping you find the future you want and achieving it. We will never, ever, if I find a volunteer or an employee of this center that's trying to pressure somebody to do one way or the other, they're going to be gone. This is about what do you want? What are your dreams, the ones that you say, I could never achieve? I imagine for Steve, before he got his GED, it probably seemed ridiculously impossible. You know? And he did it. See?
Yeah, it took me like 3 or 4 times before I passed it.
Yeah.
And I did it 3 times on paper, twice on the computer, and then when I did it the last time, which I only had one more chance, I got 20 points more than what I did. So I did actually better than I thought I did.
Yep.
And all I did is I took Khan Academy, that thing that you can get online, and I got books, and I studied, and I worked on what my weaknesses were, and then I worked on those, and that's how I was able to pass my GED.
Exactly.
So anybody can do that.
Anybody can get your GED. Anybody can, whatever your future is, whatever your goal is, and I know some of you don't even want to admit at this point you have goals. You're so beaten down by life. All you see around you are people cycling in and out of prison. All you see is people addicted to drugs. All you see is people on welfare, on food stamps. But let yourself dream of a future. And you can do it if you work at it. It may take you 5 tries to get there. My son has a slight case of autism. He got a college degree. It took him 6.5 years to get a 4-year degree. But he did it because he kept working. Steve got his GED because he kept working. I got my college degrees because I was determined nothing was going to stop me. And so I worked through all of the problems. And that's what it's going to take. Whatever your problems are, know that you can get through them. You may need to ask for help, and that's very hard. It's very hard for me still to ask somebody for help. I'm really struggling right now with this whole thing of trying to open this Teen Outreach Center for you because I need other people to do it. I don't have the money to buy a building and fix it to open this for you. I need other people to come in. But even once it's open, I can't run it by myself. We're going to need lots of staff. We're going to need lots of volunteers. So that means I have to keep asking for help in order to accomplish this that we want to do to help you. And that's hard for me. But I'm making myself do it. I'm making myself step out there. Okay? And that's what you can do. You're going to run into problems in your life. You're going to have tough times. You may have tough economic times. You may get a job and be happy there. My parents' generation, up until the mid-70s, their generation and before, they were taught that you took a job and that was your job for life. All of a sudden, in the mid-70s, the Great Recession hit. People lost their jobs. And they never got them back again. Okay? That happens today. A lot of companies will come in, they'll lay you off with no warning. So you may be coming along fine. Say you've gotten your education, or you've gotten your trade license, you found that perfect spouse, and you've married. Maybe you've started to get, all of a sudden there's an economic problem. One of you has lost your job. Okay, that's a problem that you'll just have to work through. That's how you be a functioning adult. You work through your problems. And I want to be real with you about this, saying life is not about having candy every day. Life can be hard, but you can get through it. You can accomplish what you want to accomplish. I did. I was severely mentally ill and I earned 2 college degrees. Okay, part of that was because God's hand was on me. Again, I have my faith, and I'm not trying to push it on you, but I will always be honest and tell you about my faith and what I believe God has done in my life. And then you can decide if you want to know more or not. If you don't want to believe, that's your choice. I'm not going to force you. But part of it was God. Part of it was that I was just determined I was going to work through those things no matter what it took. I was going to achieve that. And you can't do it. If you set your mind now that whatever problems you run into in life, you're going to get through them. You're not going to give up. You're not going to kill yourself because life seems too hard. You're not going to divorce after the first argument. Sometimes divorce is inevitable. Sometimes it happens. Again, I want to be real with you. You've seen it in your lives, and you're going to see it in adults. But before you get to that point, try hard to work through it. And that's the same with any problem that hits you. Try to work through that problem. Know they're coming, but try to work through them. Okay? So again, my name is James, and this is Steve, and both of us hope that soon we'll have this teen center. We'll be able to sit there on some nice comfy couches, maybe some beanbags. I know kids like to throw themselves down on beanbags, so that's one of the things I think that we'd like to see. We're going to set up a teen council, and the teen council is actually going to pick out everything that goes in the teen center except the computers. I insist that there be computers with the internet on them because I know how many kids don't.
I got some Bibles too.
Yeah, and we're going to have Bibles there for those that want to know. Again, we're not going to force you to know anything about God, but it'll be available if you want it. So we're going to have some Bibles available. We'll have other things available, regular books available to give you. Okay? But the computers will be there because there's so many in these poor neighborhoods like Bloomingdale that during COVID, they fell so far behind. They don't have computers at home. They don't have the internet at home. Even with what the school gave them, they really didn't know how to use it because they never had. But beyond the row of computers that are going to be fully internet accessible, everything in the teen center is going to be picked out by the teen council because this is your center. Okay? But Steve and I, we hope one day soon we'll be able to sit there on those couches, those bean bags, and talk to you face to face like this. And again, we're going to start appearing on Zoom. And when I post this video, I will put the link, the invitation number, and the password to get into the Zoom message. We're going to do that every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, so 7 p.m. Indiana time, 6 p.m. in Chicago, where this doofus is from.
Yeah.
Or my friend Elijah, he's in South Dakota. That's 2 hours behind us, I believe. So it'll be 5 p.m. Elijah's time. But tune in. And if you don't want to ask questions, don't. If you don't want to talk, don't. Just sit there and watch. Listen. If you want to ask questions, jump right in and ask them. I don't care. That's what it's for. It's to help you figure out life. Figure out how you can survive life without doing something drastic, without cutting yourself or killing yourself. Something that can't be reversed, or falling so heavily into drugs that there's no coming back from it. That's what we want to help you to do. So I want to be real with you, and that's why this is called Real Talk for Life. This is not just a conversation. This is about getting real. We're going to talk about, we've already had one conversation I recorded about homosexuality, transgender, all of that, because that's your life. We're going to talk about drugs. We're going to talk about things that these stuck-up idiots don't want you to be talked about, as if you don't already know them. Right, you know more about them than I do, probably, but that's why we need to have these as actual conversations, because, I'm sure you know more about some of this stuff than I do, because I'm old and crazy. All right, so anyway, I just want you to be blessed. I want you to have a good night, and think about this. Think about a plan for what am I going to do when it gets hard. And if that involves therapy, get it. I spent 40 years swearing I would never would. And after I started, it's wonderful. Being able to talk through it changes so much in your mind. Just being able to say the words about what happened to you changes your mind and frees it. All right, so you have a good night now, and we will talk to you soon on Zoom. Good night from James and Steve.